Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LIPP MEN on UFO. I'm Glenn Sportcat Jackson. I am merely just the button pusher for this show. I was gone last week, so they missed me. Let's see who we got hiding back here. We got Mr. Lippman and Mr. Lippman number 2. Let me move you guys around here. I do this every week so that, there's no fighting. And we also have a guest, Charles. So I'll let y'all introduce everybody there. And I will just be hiding down here somewhere in the bottom. Well, no, not like that.
Well, yeah, definitely not like that.
Yeah, less of me, more of you guys.
All right, well,
is it good?
I think we can settle on that for the time being, but I'll start talking while you figure out the idyllic position. Welcome to week 6 of the LIPP MEN on the UFL, and this week we have our first guest. As you can see, this is Charles Richardson from the Touchdown Crew. His partner Jay couldn't make it, but we'll have him on another time as well. It's all right. Jay's role will be taken by Jake because they're both the stats and the players and the history and the numbers guys, and Charles and I are the cranky old men. So we have all the typecasting here. This is going to be like everybody loves Raymond when Raymond's brother comes over. So anyway. Thank you all for joining us here. Thank you, Sportscat, for having us. Week 6, I'm feeling pretty good about my predictions. I don't want to brag, but I'm about to. 8-0 in the last 2 weeks, even my upstate special. But let's not get right into that. Notice the shirt I'm wearing. There's a purpose. I'm not going to spoil it, but there is going to be a prediction. But let me introduce.
Let's also do something real quick here. I forgot to remind everybody, we are on the Yergs Radio Network. If you want to listen mobile and not watch us on YouTube, which we prefer, you can go to yergsradio.com and tune in there and catch us. And we also have a toll-free number, 1-888-88-YERGZ. It's 1-888-88-YERGZ. We encourage everybody to call and maybe flirt with Jake or something. So
that's right. Flirt with Jake. That was or with Charles, not with me. I was just about to introduce Jake. Jake, how you doing, my boy?
It's another good day in paradise here. Week 6 is in the books. No real shakeups in the standings this week, but some very interesting results to analyze and break down. And then a big week 7 incoming. I mean, we're 60% done through the season. It's flying by, and I think we're starting to really see a playoff run heat up in one division or conference, and we're really seeing the cream of the crop rise to the top. So we kind of said it a few weeks previously, we're starting to see these teams round into form, and we're seeing it. So lots to talk about. If you're choosing to watch us today over some playoff hockey or playoff basketball or MLB or all the million different things that are happening in the world. Thank you for tuning in. Let us know how you're feeling in the chat, and we'd love to talk with you. But I'd love to pass it over to Charles and say hello to our guest. We appreciate you coming in. So how's it going, Charles?
Hey, appreciate you guys having me. Not bad. You know what? Didn't really catch a whole lot of action. Was too busy getting soaked over at Typhoon Lagoon here at Disney. So, but you know what? I did go ahead and get a chance to see some of the stats and some of the highlights going on. I'm very disappointed in regards to the running game on a lot of these teams. You would think the offensive line would finally click after 4 or 5 weeks. Just doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be a lot of aerial attacks going on, and it makes for more exciting football. Don't get me wrong, but I will point out real quickly to the renegade runner up there. You guys can't win a game to save your life. And on top of that, you guys, I believe, have your own version of yellow hankies that you guys throw on the field, just to spite. Just like, before even the play starts, I think yellow hankies are coming out just because somebody's doing something wrong. So, but definitely happy to see some competition going on in the XFL side with DC climbing a little bit. That was nice to see. So I'm actually happy to see that. It's not just going to be a two-man race down the stretch. DC finally has the ability to go ahead and close the gap, and I like that. Definitely for the 14,000 that showed up. It didn't look like 14,000, but we'll go with those stats. We'll go with that.
Yeah, we'll go with the numbers that they gave us. I just want to clarify for Charles and anyone who doesn't know by now, anyone who's joining for the first time, I don't have any particular team. I mean, there's no team in Baltimore, and the only team I don't have merchandise for is the closest team, which is the DC Defenders. Because as a Baltimore guy, I just can't quite get myself to buy anything from DC. But I do try to choose the shirts for some particular reason, and we will get there. I'm not wearing it because of the perfection of imperfection. So anyway, we'll get to that. Actually, I think the running game, you make some good criticism there, but some of the teams, I think we did show a commitment to the running game. So, so all of these teams have sort of strange weeks and off weeks and things like that, but some things are coming together and some things came together oddly. So let's start where we normally do, where we talk about the ratings for the week prior. So week 5, we had another one of these games where they were simulcast. So they had Birmingham and Houston on at the same time as San Antonio over at Arlington on Fox. They combine it or they average it, or I don't know what the heck they do. I don't know how they measure it. Nobody answers me. Whenever I put anything, I know it's being read because Mike Mitchell gives me a like, but he doesn't give me an answer. And then I get 16 different answers from people in those threads, some of which look like they're in some sort of media or at least in the podcasting world. Others are just random fans. And everyone is exactly sure that they are right, and that I am either wrong or I am exactly right, and I don't know the answer to it. Anyway, 778,000 was the average for Fox in the afternoon. ESPN, St. Louis at DC did 688,000. And Memphis at Michigan on Fox Sunday was 731,000. Okay, so viewership remains up. So last week, week 5 was up 37%. This week, they're saying it's up 25%. Up is up, and they're comparing it to the all-spring football leagues. They're comparing it to XFL, USFL, and all-spring football. So up is up, but the percentage up is going down. So that's not great, I suppose. And
well, it makes sense, though. We're in the heart of the season. So I think once we hit that week 10, the playoffs, I think we'll see that larger number come in, and maybe we'll see a little bit more consistency all the way up to the championship game.
Charles?
Yeah, I was going to say, at some point in time, when you reach the top of the mountain, there's not really any more climbing to do. And when you look at spring football, we don't really know what the top of the mountain is. I'm sorry for the dog because she disagrees with me, but we don't know what the top of that mountain is. 1 million, that definitely sounds like that's about the top of the mountain right there is 1 million in viewership, and we're coming really close to that. And all the numbers around how much percentage it was to last year overall, USFL, XFL, all this other stuff. Listen, I just say let's go ahead and be happy about the numbers, because unless they're starting to pull down to FS1 numbers, which is 150,000, 200,000, I think we got a hit on our hands.
Okay. You know what? I like the positivity, so I'm going to move off of that topic, go into a couple of quick hits, and then a couple of other things for discussion. Just in some of the transactions, I just highlighted some of the ones I thought that were more relevant. There's 1 million transactions every week in this league. But Arlington signed defensive back Joe Powell. And there was someone, they made a big deal about this, that he was from the Carolina Cobras, which I guess is another professional or semi-professional league.
Arena league. Indoor league.
And for those of you who have been following the Arena League, please don't confuse it with the UFL, but the Arena League has had a bad week. The Iowa Rampage announced they were stopping operations immediately. The day later, we found out that the president, I guess, of the league, or the chief operating officer, I think his name is Charles Hutton, apparently basically said to all of the teams, let them eat cake, in his best Marie Antoinette impersonation. Apparently, he's getting paid, but no one else is. And later that day or the next day, the NFL Network said we're not running the Arena League on the NFL Network anymore, so they lost their major TV. And then today, 5 or 6 other teams announced that they were no longer operating. I think that there's 8 or 9 that are still remaining, but I have no idea how they're possibly going to do it. So, hey, you guys in the Arena League, come on over to the UFL. I have personally advocated that the UFL should make a promotion to honor Arena League fans' tickets to their games, to UFL games, just to get those bodies in the door and buy merchandise and whatever it is. And UFL, except for St. Louis, I think you should give tickets to high school teams throughout your radius. Because when the high school teams come, their families come, the JV team comes, the cheerleaders come, the hangers-oners come. So, just increase security because high school kids fight. Also, big surprise for Jake. He actually was catatonic for 2 days. DC released defensive back DJ Swearinger, one of your favorites. What happened there?
And honestly, I was too depressed to go into the research to really figure out what was the reason, because he was playing pretty well and he was all over the ball. As a DJ Swearinger fan, I hope that this means that he is a landing spot in the NFL in the future. I'm not sure if Charles or anybody in the comments can clear us up on exactly why it was, because it was a busy weekend, but it was a sad day for us DJ Swearinger fans. And, he's just a good player. And I thought he fit this league like a glove. So I hope that means that there's an opportunity for him somewhere.
He was a great player, and it came as a big surprise to all of us. But I'm just hoping that he joins his grandfather, Al Swearinger, in Deadwood, and that they finally get to Yankton and become a legalized territory. So Deadwood, so Al can, Deadwood, the show on HBO. If you haven't watched, shame on you. Go watch it. It's fabulous. And someone can tell me what Shakespearean or Greek chorus show that it's supposed to be emulating. I still haven't figured it out after 20 years. All right, injuries. The Roughnecks tight end Woody Brandon, pretty serious injury out for the season with a broken leg. There were a couple scary moments during the course of this week, couple injuries on successful teams. I mean, the Birmingham Stallions have had a couple of injuries where they've had people stretcher it out, but doesn't seem to stop them. But okay, so we're going to stay positive because I know the two of you want to stay positive, and my propensity is to stay negative. But there's a couple of topics that have been hot this week. One is definitely hot. The other isn't necessarily hot, but it's not necessarily bad. And one is relocation of teams. I've heard Memphis, Houston, and Michigan are all possibly relocating. But tied to that, and the undeniably good news, is expansion is still very much being talked about. So why don't my two happy... Let's go with Charles, the guest, and why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're hearing about both of these topics?
As far as I'm going, I'm hearing about as much as you guys are. But here's my thing, and I've heard a lot of comments in regards to the couch potato GMs and the couch potato owners, how they would want to do it. It's like, listen, this is the first year of the UFL. This is actually the first year Memphis, Birmingham, Michigan are all getting fans in their own home territories, in their stadiums. So does that make it more or less like there should have been 15, 20,000 at Birmingham, there should have been 15, 20,000 at Michigan. Granted, I know Birmingham, they 1 out of every 3 games was a home game last year. And same thing with Michigan. But I think in order to build a brand, you need to go ahead and have stability. And I don't think you go ahead and start packing up U-Hauls right away. Even though in the business mind, what Danny Garcia may be looking at, Dale Johnson may be looking at, they may be thinking, this ain't cutting it. We need to go ahead and... Now, Houston, on the other hand, Houston was dealt a bad draw. They were dealt the gamblers, reassigned as the Roughnecks. So they got their team name, but they lost their soul. And they also lost, yeah, exactly. And they also lost their home stadium because it wasn't Rice. It wasn't Rice Stadium. Now, whether that makes a difference or not, I don't know. But that's where I think we need to take year 2. Daryl's already said, well, hopefully we won't have these problems in year 2. We got the time slots. You know what? So automatically you're thinking here, hey, everybody's going to be status quo going next year. We may or may not see expansion just to see how the 8 teams do in a real prepared, non-merger type season. So we may not see any expansion next year. It may be 2026 where we start seeing a couple of West Coast teams bind together. start bringing in some of the San Diegos. Let's start bringing in the Seattle's back. Let's go ahead and maybe look at it. Portland. Stay the hell away from Los Angeles. Nobody cares about football over there. Even the professional teams that are there don't care. Bring it to San Diego where they're craving it. Bring it back to Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. Get one of those USFL teams back over there, and let's go ahead and pick strong candidates. If you're going to relocate, do it that way. I'd love to see a team down here in Tampa Bay, Bandits. I don't care about the Renegades or the Guardian. They can rot in hell, maybe the Apollos, but I think we need to keep the status quo for one more year and see how it goes.
And I will say, I would love to see a team in Orlando. I bring back the Guardians, bring us in the Apollos, whatever it may be. Give us a team. We got a beautiful stadium right down the road here, and it's ready for some football. And I have to say, the Magic's playoff run, which unfortunately ended after Game 7, it showed me that there are real fans in Orlando. Not being from Orlando and going to an Orlando Magic playoff game and feeling that atmosphere, it was incredible. So seeing that in a football stadium would be amazing, and I think it should happen. And I agree with everything you just said, though, Charles. I think there's certain cities that they should avoid. There's certain cities that they should go to, and I think that they need to flock to expansion. I understand if they have a 5-year plan, and that might mean 2 years of buildup, but we need exposure here. If you want to get those ratings up, if you want to get some more fans in, you need to have exposure. You can't expect people to travel hundreds and thousands of miles to go to games, and the only way that you're going to build a base is by having teams for people to support. So I want to see this expansion ASAP, but I see you got a little rebuttal for me.
But you got to think of business mind. Expansion means more money. Unless you're going to go ahead and revamp a deal with Fox, which may possibly be like UFO is already showing the numbers are strong. Let's renegotiate this deal. Let's get Fox to pour in some more money. Let's get NBC on the case. Let's get CBS in the case. Let's do this. Let's get a big-time TV deal. Then we have some scratch that we can play with to expand.
Well, I have a dark horse in that, and that is a network that really wants sports and probably just lost the NBA. And that's Warner Brothers Discovery. So you're shaking your head, but they're a major conglomerate network, and they can be part of it. And if Fox doesn't want to put more money in, those two companies are already in business together for a streaming service. I realize it's a Roku, competitor. It's not like everyone's making it like the giant deal, like they're building Max or something or Netflix. They're not, but it is seen. Anyway, listen, because of my vast knowledge of professional wrestling, I can smell what The Rock is cooking. And this is what I have heard. So I have heard that they're definitely not doing New York. They're definitely not doing California. But some of the places, so they're talking about Nashville, not instead of Memphis, but in addition to. Now they're on completely different sides of the state, but that seems like not a terrific idea to me. I have heard Atlanta. I've heard New Orleans. I've definitely heard Orlando. Canton apparently is a no-go. I'm not really sure why. I guess they think it's not a big enough market, but there is Columbus is there, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Ohio is a big state. You can find somewhere there. But I am definitely hearing the Pacific Northwest as well. Both Seattle, I think the team is called the Sea Dragons, and Portland are in play, and someplace in Pennsylvania, the Philadelphia Stars are being mentioned again. But I even have heard Scranton, which strikes me as a little bit strange, but okay. Anyway,
the office.
Yeah, the Scranton Strangler might still be loose. But by the way,
Michael Scott is the mascot.
What? Okay, opinions. Toby was totally the Scranton Strangler, wasn't he?
Oh yeah.
Okay, Charles.
See, what disappoints me is that just the very mention of another tem in Tennessee.
This is just Toby the Scranton Strangler. This is not a.
No, that's horrible. I mean, maybe IFL and another off the seas arena league, maybe, but not UFL.
Yeah, and Glenn, Sportscat, what do you think?
Nashville has supported a hockey team, and no one thought they would, starting off with that. And every time they've tried to have an arena league, it's almost sold out. So I think Nashville would be ripe for it since they can't go to Knoxville. So I think Nashville and Memphis are far enough apart. Wouldn't be, I mean, it's an hour's drive, it's a day's drive to get from Memphis to Nashville. So
Well, why can't they have a team in Knoxville? Is it Kane? Is he putting up a wall of fire?
Oh no. They're trying to get a professional baseball team. That might actually happen. They're building a huge stadium, but they can't have a professional football team that's going to compete with the Volunteers. The university won't allow it. And the university brings in too much money.
I understand.
That's been looked at.
It's not Mayor Glenn Jacobs, better known as Kane, the Undertaker's brother.
But Nashville does have a soccer stadium, kind of like DC.
Yes. Well, they're building a brand new arena or football stadium for I'm drawing a total blank here. The Nashville professional team.
Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, Titans.
Titans?
Yeah, they're building a whole brand new stadium for it.
All right, Sportscat. It's time to drink your milk, Sportscat.
Back to bed.
All right, so everyone is feeling pretty good about expansion. Relocation, not as much. I will say, as the Debbie Downer that I am, Michigan didn't help their case this week by being in Ford Field. They should have gotten a big surge. They didn't. Memphis, although hosting the undefeated Birmingham Stallions, really had a pretty poor showing as far as fans are concerned. But two of the teams showed out. Their fans showed it. All right, let's get into the week's action. So the first game was Birmingham at Memphis. Again, 5,609 people. Not exactly great. Thank goodness they're not doing the rotating quarterback thing. Adrian Martinez gets the start. That was very much an open question for part of the week. Thank goodness it wasn't. The game started by Birmingham sacking Cookus. It didn't get much better from there, though there was one illusory early. Memphis scored a touchdown to the tight end, Sage Surratt. 1-point conversion was missed, of course, 6-0. But after that, it was basically all Birmingham. We had Person getting a touchdown. There was a 2-point conversion was successful. We had a touchdown catch to Maribel, so he's getting in the pass game as well. Justin Thomas had a 2-point conversion catch, so we're getting conversion after conversion. We had a huge 4th down stop by the Memphis defense, but then there was a strip and a fumble on Cookus, and Birmingham recovered the ball. That allowed a touchdown by Marlon Williams before halftime. It was 22-9 at halftime. Then we just got into field goals, and then there was one marvelous 79-yard pass to Kevin Austin Jr. It was 31-9. Troy Williams came in and was relieving Cookus, who I think at that point was stripped and threw a couple of interceptions. We get another field goal. They traded field goals, so it's 31-12. Then Birmingham intercepted Troy Williams, another Justin Williams touchdown. This game ended up at 39 to it was 39-12 with a 2-point conversion to Josh Thomas. There was a nice touchdown pass to D. Anderson at the end for Memphis, 39-21. They tried a 4th and 12, which they should have, and they missed. And, the game wasn't as close as it sounds. Birmingham goes to 6-0. Memphis 1-5. And this game sort of went the way you thought that it might. Gentlemen, please join in.
Charles, you take it first, because I think I have a hot take to say.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. I don't want to cool you off now, do I?
I think we should save it.
Just
build some
try it.
Anticipation.
I think everybody knew Birmingham was going to go ahead and be the top dog on this game. I mean, it was just it wasn't even, if you were betting against you were basically betting the house because you were so far behind on your mortgage payment that you were going to lose it anyway. You might just go ahead and bet it. Just hopefully that's that long shot. There was no question. Birmingham is probably the most complete team out there. It's coached by it's coached by the GOAT, of spring league football, that's Chip Holtz, is coached by 6-0. They're the fastest team to go ahead and make the playoffs in the modern spring league era, which I don't know how much that really says, but 6-0 is saying something that they're clearly going to go ahead and probably be in the title game unless some miracle or major choking hazard that falls on the floor, which I don't see happening. Skip is just too grounded for that. Now, I'll say this later because I want to get into the next week's games, but I'll save it for later. But I mean, it was obvious. It was obvious that Birmingham was going to control the game from here on out. The only question is, like, are they going to go up to a fast start, a slow start? Either way, they could be down 28-0 at halftime. Skip's like, okay, guys, now we turn on the Jets. Now we give some drama.
Jake?
And you know what? I like a lot of what you said, but I actually did predict Memphis to win this game. And it was gut intuition. It was the Mark Thompson effect, which fell right on my face. I remember his first carry, he was hit before he even looked up 4 yards in the backfield. But my hot take here is, if you take out the second, third, and fourth quarter, Memphis played great. In the first quarter, they played amazing. I mean, there was nowhere to run for Adrian Martinez, or really the entire Birmingham offense in the first quarter. They were moving the ball early in the game with a lot of really nice short yardage passes. David Davis was involved. I mean, Vinny Papelli had a couple catches. They looked decent in the first quarter. In the first quarter, I was like, wow, I kind of just said this just to say it, and it might actually be right. And then the game started. And unfortunately for Memphis, I mean, they're really not the worst team of all time. They've got a good set of pass catchers. They've got a decent defense. I mean, they just have no secondary on their defense. Their front seven flies to the ball, but they get burned deep every time. And I don't know. I'm not as sold on Birmingham as everybody else is. I get it. They're 6-0. I get it. They're definitely the best team in the conference. But to me, they don't scream championship. They don't even scream number one team in the league to me. They're a solid shoo-in for probably number two. But
well, you know, you got to scream. You got to scream about Adrian Martinez, who threw for like 385 passes, ran for another 118, and 4 touchdowns.
But Matt Corral's going to start next week.
No, he's not. This is done. No more Matt Corral. They're going to put Corral in the corral.
I mean, I like Matt Corral. We talked about this week after.
I like him too. What just happened?
This is way better. I guess we got some technical difficulties, but
What's
we're back.
Sportcat doing there?
I have no idea.
See, just like the technical part of the show, it's not a full 60 minutes.
Right.
You know, so Birmingham. I didn't say they were a 60-minute team. The problem is they play really good on the 45 minutes they do play, or the 30 minutes that they do play, and they just stay in the game. As long as they stay in the game, it's over. It's just, I mean, how do you not see a dual threat quarterback with a stacked wide receiving core, a stacked running game that they could pull out any second of any day, and a defense that plays pretty damn good? I mean, you have all the weapons to go ahead and score 30 and 40 points any given week, and that defense just keeps you in the game. That's all you need to do. Give up your 15, 20 points, 25 points. We'll score 28, 30, 32.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. And I think when we look at this defense, we've given a lot of shout outs to a lot of guys. But one guy, number 99, Tillman on the end. I mean, that guy, he showed up this week. They really do fly to the ball, and they might not be a complete team, but they put together a complete game somehow every week. So I don't want to talk in circles on this one. If Adrian Martinez is their quarterback going forward, I mean, they're a really hard team to beat.
Tell me, is there any proof or any hint of doubt that Adrian's not your starting quarterback?
Not for me.
Not in my eyes either, but I get it. You want to get Corral some footage to show to the NFL team. So I get it. This is a developmental league. But
No. I disagree with you. Gave Corral that footage. Corral didn't secure it. Adrian went ahead and took it away. Even after Adrian was horrible throwing the ball the first couple of games, he just made plays happen. He made points happen. And Corral lost it. He has footage. It's bad footage.
Well, you know what? It wasn't losing footage, but I will say Adrian Martinez is playing the best football of his entire career, dating back to some of his great success he had in college. So we'll give him his credit. We'll let him have the cake on top here. I'm a little upset that Memphis couldn't pull this off, but
Well, one other thing about Adrian
every dog has
Martinez
their
this
day.
week is they distributed the ball to a lot of different receivers. So, I mean, this is reminiscent. I mean, I think Skip Holtz coaches confidently like Bell. They always choose to give the ball away in the first half because they want to receive on the second half. They're that confident. Always. They never get flustered. Even when he makes a decision like starting Corral that I don't agree with, he doesn't get flustered. The team doesn't get flustered. They all have absolute confidence in him. They had they lost one of their tackles last week. They put in a new tackle. Anyone notice a downside? I didn't. I saw 3 effective running backs, not just 2. So I don't know. I think Birmingham looks magnificent, but their closest competition is our next game up, and that is.
Oh, before we move on, can we talk about Memphis for one more second? Because you're right.
Sure.
Birmingham did have a 3 running back rotation, but I'm just curious. I really want to hear from Charles. No offense, Dad, but I wanted they're 1-5. I thought
it's okay.
I thought Darius Victor played well. I mean, it hasn't really hit me, but 27, stout, strong running back. He reminded me a little bit of Ray Rice. I really like their wide receiver core, but I mean, Troy Williams, Cookus can throw but can't run. Their offensive line doesn't block anything. Their defense is mid. So what's next for the 1-5 Memphis Showboats, Charles?
1-6.
Or 1-6. Yeah.
No, I think that's next for them is 1-6.
What's next for the Memphis Showboats is more advertising for $10 tickets, so they can go ahead and pull a bunch of asses in the seats or 2. That's what's next for them. Memphis has got game. It's just when you go up against Birmingham, you're just outgamed. A lot of Birmingham can go ahead and make an average team or a good team look bad, and that's what they're doing.
Have they done Elvis night yet? Have they done like Graceland days, like where they invite like all Elvis impersonators for, or whatever? Like, are they trying things other than $10 tickets? I mean, $10 tickets is great, but it's sort of the bottom of it's like the lowest hanging creativity thing. You're in Memphis, like do Johnny Cash night, do Elvis Day, do Graceland, whatever else is happening in Memphis. I'm sure there's some Grizzlies Reminiscence Day. I don't know.
That's a good, that's a great idea. Do an Elvis Day. Go ahead and I don't know. It's just too bizarre. I don't think anything could go ahead and draw Memphis a crowd right now.
Everybody gets a free peanut butter and banana fried sandwich. I mean, whatever. That was Elvis's favorite sandwich. I mean, I'm in Baltimore. We have Night of 100 Elvises here in Lithuanian Hall. What does Elvis have to do with Lithuania? Nothing.
And what UFL team do you have up there in Baltimore?
We have no UFL team, but we have the Baltimore Ravens, which is
best team in football.
Pretty much. Yeah. By the way, I figured out what has to happen is that Lamar Jackson has to date Beyonce, or at least the 3 tight ends need to date the combination of Megan Thee Stallion, Cardi B, and Kylie Jenner from the Wet Blank Blank video, and that way we can beat the Swifties. That's the only way. We need the power of all 3 to do it. Anyway, so now we're going to go to Eustace. I think we've spent way too much time talking about Memphis. We've spent more time talking about Memphis than the fans at Memphis talked about Memphis. Houston at St. Louis. St. Louis. The St. Louis Cardinals had a game running opposite them. St. Louis Cardinals had about 39,000 fans there. The St. Louis Battlehawks at home, 32,969, showing out again. They are leading. I understand that it's a little bit of spite, that they're angry at the NFL, but whatever it is, spite works, folks. So Memphis, what are you mad about? The Grizzlies. Anyway, I'm talking about Memphis now. Houston's defense. It was tough. It was tough to start. They had a big interception in the end zone. Remember last week I talked about that I expect some of these teams to start fighting. And we started to see Houston's team arguing with each other and the coach having to get in between it. I'm not smart enough to look at the numbers and the faces and names yet to know who's on offense and defense, but I bet that those were defensive players chewing out offensive players. And that is a major concern because Coach CJ Johnson isn't that good. And I joked on the touchdown crew last week, that he kept losing coaches' challenges. Now, this week he happened not to because he didn't have to make a challenge because the booth overturned something for him. But if he threw the challenge, I'm sure that he would have lost it. And there was another time where he could have made a challenge and he didn't. And they were saying he might have won it, but he didn't, so it wasn't important. But I have to tell you that everyone's talking about St. Louis as the best team in the league, and they want to me, and everyone wants to poo-poo Birmingham to an extent. But St. Louis struggled in this game. This game ended with a final of 22-8. Yeah, Houston can't score. Reed Sinnett, I mean, if you can describe an offense as glazed eye look, that was Reed Sinnett. I thought he might cry. I don't know. But Houston's defense, there's no quit in them, but I wouldn't blame them if they did sort of quit. Anyway, St. Louis, they were shut out in the first quarter for the first time all season. It took until 6 minutes and 12 seconds into the second quarter for Hakeem Butler, my man, to get a touchdown pass. Of course, the conversion missed. There was almost a disastrous play, which almost turned into an amazing offensive play for Houston, but the ball was a little bit out of bounds and the receiver caught it out of bounds. But it could have, it was like everything all in one. Like if they made that play work, this could have been an entirely different game, but it's Houston, so it wasn't. Houston drove, but there was a catch, then a fumble. St. Louis recovered, so there's defense keeping them alive. There was a Mitchell TD catch and a Jake Sutherland 2-point conversion. So at halftime was 14-zip. Mark Thompson, Jake's guy, he had a rush touchdown for Houston. There was a sack on the 2-point conversion, which is always deflating. So you're now 14-6. Mark Thompson apparently at some point said, I quit. I don't know if that was just frustration. If he's serious, I don't know what's going on. Houston had a 4th down stop of St. Louis, so that was pretty cool for Houston. They're still feisting it up. And then St. Louis shanks a punt. Houston gets the ball like on the 46-yard line and does nothing with it. Hakeem Butler ends up catching a second touchdown pass. I think he had over 130 yards for a second game in a row, 2 touchdown passes. Sailors with a 2-point catch. So not so much on the running game, but contributing. But the running game, if St. Louis had a weakness, that was probably it. But they didn't look great. Reed Sinnett hurt his hand. He stayed in the game. I guess that's good. Maybe. I don't know. But he looked like he was in a daze the whole game. But listen, St. Louis won. That's the important thing. They were at home. Not much of a win. But they advanced to 5-1. Houston is 1-5. I don't know. This game, St. Louis lost a game early in the season. Then they looked like a juggernaut, and this one they looked pedestrian. So I know I talked a lot. You guys take over. I'm a little bit exhausted with myself right now.
Well, I was exhausted too because St. Louis put us through the ringer in that game, and I do think it's very similar to what Charles said with Birmingham earlier. I think they very much can take time off and then just outscore teams. And I think that's what you saw. I think Hakeem Butler, 144 yards and 2 touchdowns last week, then had 137 and 2 touchdowns this week. He's leading the league in touchdowns this year. He's looking like a prime candidate to make it to the NFL, which is great to see. And what really was shocking to me was Reed Sinnett stayed in the game. And I like how Reed Sinnett battles. And I think a lot of their problems for Houston comes down to their offensive line. But Jared Garantamo, the week 1 starter, was active this week. And you would think if you put so much trust in him to be your week 1 starter, that once he's healthy and your team hasn't taken improvements with the backup, that you would put him back in. And as they continued to struggle, they didn't put Jared Garantamo back on the field. So I wouldn't be shocked if we see a quarterback change next week. I think their running game still needs to get a fire lit under them. I think they love Kiki Chisholm. They love Justin Hall. But these guys, they need help. They need a running game. They need something, because right now what they're doing is not working. And we'll give a little shout out to Chris Odom. He has 4 sacks, I believe, in 4 weeks that he's played. So he's a little bit of a bright spot for them. Reuben Foster's played well, but he got hurt again. I don't remember if he came back in, but he got banged up this week, which seems like a common theme for him, which is very unfortunate because he's a stud. But I mean, all the credit's got to go to St. Louis. Until they let us score in the second quarter, they were 77 minutes of football without letting any points. So that defense is elite. And that doesn't mention their offense, which was missing Marcel Aitman. So they're missing Marcel Aitman, their other 6'6" receiver. And all of a sudden, you see Stephen Mitchell Jr., I believe he played at USC. He's a guy who hasn't really played much this year, and he had an insane game. And Ja'Cour Pearson's getting thrown back in the mix, and he's starting to get his feet under him. He took a couple big hits and got right up, and his speed is showing. And even their running game, I mean, they don't use it very much. They let A.J. McCarron throw it, but you can see how teams see the speed threat of Jacob Sailors, and they guard accordingly. So I don't know. I think there's a lot to take away from it, but most of all, their defense was flying around. Willie Harvey Jr., Mike Rose, and all those guys, Peter Taumupenu. I mean, all these guys on their defense are flying to the football, 11 men to the ball every time. They are probably my favorite team in the league. I think they're going to win the championship. I really don't think any team, including Birmingham, can beat them more than half the time if they played. If they played a 10-game series with Birmingham, I would think they'd beat Birmingham 7 times out of 10. So I think that this is a great team. They have the best home field advantage in the entire league, and I was very impressed with them. So I hope, Charles, you echo a lot of these same sentiments, because this is my team, and Birmingham can be yours, but St. Louis is mine.
Well, I have here an unopened envelope because I went ahead and I tried to ask a question, and I know the answer before I even open the envelope. So the answer right now is no unearthly idea. How do you stop Hakeem Butler? That was the question that I had. How do you stop him? You don't. There's no way to do it. And that is going to be Birmingham's focus this week. Double, triple team him, and then you got Sailors out there. AJ's going to find somebody else. You're going to have a wide open running game. But the same thing happens. St. Louis is one of the most exciting teams to watch. And I go ahead and put that side by side with Birmingham. That's why I think those two are destined to be facing off later on back at the Dome under championship conditions. St. Louis came in, expected to fight a little rat. And they fought a little bit of a Mighty Mouse. Yeah, they put up a good fight. They're not quitting yet. Roughneck fans over there, they're not quitting yet. Close, but not yet. When you're 0-6, there's not a whole lot of pride left except I need field time so I can make it to the NFL. So they're still fighting. And that, I think, is what St. Louis failed to get under their belt is they're going to come out swinging. They're, you're going to beat them. But they made things a little bit harder for you than you thought, didn't they?
Listen, if this game was in Houston, I would have given them a pass. But this game was in St. Louis.
But I also give them a pass because I know every one of them, even though they seem disciplined, every one of those Battlehawks were looking to this week, not last week. They were looking to this is a trap game.
This was trap week. A lot of people are talking about trap week. I get it. I meant to say that in the beginning, trap week, but it didn't really end up being trap week exactly. Though, I mean, I guess we can actually argue about that if we want. But speaking of 0-6, our next game brings us to Michigan in Ford Field, where the then 0-5 Arlington Renegades went to face the 3-2 Michigan Panthers. Again, at Ford Field, they drew 7,428. Not great where they were playing before. Certainly not great in Ford Field. I think they were expecting a lot more of a turnout from the Detroit faithful. Well, I guess we found out how faithful they are in Detroit. Anyway, it was Luis Perez versus Danny Etling, still starting, not really feeling like a backup anymore. This game was probably the game of the week as far as excitement was concerned. I'm not saying it was the game of the week as far as quality of gameplay, but it was tight. It was 11-10 Arlington in the second quarter. Michigan, you had McClary with a really nice run, and then it ended up getting negated. So a lot of penalties at bad times.
So many penalties in this game.
Yeah, very frustrating times, and a lot of, if you were on offense, they were offensive penalties. If you were on defense, they were defense. Whatever you didn't need to happen, both teams were killing themselves. Javante Payton had a real big catch. He got to the 20-yard line with 40 seconds left in the half. There was a TD pass. And then there was, which was also negated by an offensive penalty. But there was a super challenge, and it was overturned. So, okay, good job. Then a TD catch to Canella. 2-point conversion, missed, of course. 17-10, Arlington. But it's not halftime yet, because as long as you have Jake Bates, who, I know, Jake Bates, we're going to give him his flowers, but your field goal kicker shouldn't be your most valuable player. But, of course, it's the Ravens, and we're used to our field goal kicker often being our most valuable player, whether it's Justin Tucker now or some of the kickers in the past as well.
And I'm going to interject real quick, because you just said it was the trap week. No, this was Jake Bates week. I mean, and not that every other week hasn't been Jake Bates week, but he's not just the most valuable player on that team. He is the best player on that team. So continue. I just needed to make sure everybody knows that Jake Bates is the man. He is what the kids would call him.
Oh, well, he's got aura. Well, you're our most valuable, Jake. But yeah, I mean, if you get to the 50-yard line, basically, if you get the ball on your 20-yard line, and if you can muster up a 30-yard drive, you're in scoring position with Jake Bates. So Danny Etling doesn't have to be that great. Anyway, so he hits a 60-yard field goal, and it's 17-13 at halftime. Second half, another Bates field goal, 17-16. But there was a penalty, repeat first down. So Michigan goes down and scores. No, they get stopped, but another field goal. So 17-16 again. Arlington, at some point, lost all of their running backs. They had no active running backs on the roster at some point. So, listen, folks, we're very happy to have Charles on. A little disappointed Jay couldn't make it, but we're going to have Jay another time. But we are working on having other guests, and I don't want to spoil anything. But if you pay close attention, you may find a possible spoiler. But coming up soon, Wes Hills with another rushing touchdown. Looking strong. He had a good game. Old Wes Hills from D2 Delaware.
And this was a touchdown that they ruled on the field down by contact, which was a horrendous call. And thank God it got overturned, because our guy Wes Hills went from 3 touchdowns last week, and they tried to take his one away from him this week.
And it wasn't really close. I mean, he was completely over. There were some strange calls this week, and some non-calls, but took more time than. I mean, even one for DC later on, where look, they thought it might be a safety, and clearly the ball got over the line. Barely, but we'll get to that in a second. So we have a field goal, and then there's another penalty. So there's a re-kick with 0 seconds left, and it was a defensive penalty, so the field goal is good. And the game ends with Michigan winning with the last second, half second really. Jake Bates, the hero, once again, probably his 4th field goal of the game. 28-7, Michigan ekes one out, advances to 4-2, and Arlington, perfection and imperfection at 0-6.
I was trying to say 5 field goals, actually.
5, my goodness. The Arlington is the best winless team I've ever seen. Probably. That's not saying much. But enough of me. So, Charles, I see you shaking your head. You're smiling. You have the whole range of emotions. It's like you saw one of those Broadway plays where you laughed, you cried, you loved the whole thing.
This basically ripped out any Renegade fan that's still left in the UFL. Speechless. Everybody's wondering, how in the world did this team win a league championship last year? It is just undisciplined football. It is undisciplined. When you go ahead and you knock your behind into a kicker, and granted they didn't lose any points on those 2 times that they was roughing the kickers. They just, we're off the field for another 2-3 minutes, but that's 6-7 minutes of your offense that's sitting there twiddling their thumbs, wondering, what in the world are you guys doing?
And they needed that time at the end of the game.
You needed it, absolutely. Now you had the lead. Listen, guys, you got this. We're this close to winning it. This guy can kick it from the moon, but just stop them. Just get out there. Don't let anything pass you. Keep everything in front of you. Stop them. Get some pressure. Come on. We got a minute and a half to go ahead and do this. Get all your energy. They couldn't. They couldn't do it. Arlington, they should be about 3-3. If you really want to know the truth, they should be. But because of undisciplined play, stupid mistakes, and you can't blame Perez. Perez is throwing it all over the field. He's the top quarterback in passing yards. He's not the problem. You got a soft bread defense. Butter. I guess butter would have been a better word. But anyway, I'm shooting my load here. It's just saying you gotta find what worked, and after 6 weeks they haven't found nothing.
And I think that sums it up well. I mean, they really haven't found their flow, their rhythm yet. I mean, this is a team, they should have won this game. I predicted Arlington to win this game, and really I didn't think Etling was going to play. And if he played, I thought he would kind of look the way he did, where a little sloppy. He didn't look as comfortable running as he has in the past. But I mean, I just couldn't believe that Arlington, they threw that game in the gutter. I mean, 4th and 5, there's linesmen for a reason. Don't line up off sides. I mean, how do you do that? And they got lucky that their defense was able to hold, I guess, kind of a 3-and-out. I mean, they weren't able to go anywhere, but then you just let another kick go, and it's Jake Bates. He's not going to miss a field goal. And even though Etling wasn't running at his best, I mean, he still had like 60, 70 rushing yards and 6 or 7 carries. That game was mind-boggling for me for Arlington. And you could kind of see the demise happen when Day Hunter got in the end zone and he gets in his offensive lineman's arms and he lands and probably towards ACL just from landing on the touchdown celebration. I mean, you just things like that is what ruin a game for a football team. And Day Hunter, I hope I'm not wrong in this, but I think that was his first game for them. I don't remember seeing him at all. And he was playing very well. He was a quick little scat back. I mean, and he was doing great. He was involved in the pass game. I saw him pass block a little bit, and he was running the ball well. And even Devion Smith, who we haven't seen much from, played well this week. I mean, against a stout Michigan defense. So when you look at Arlington, I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, you have good receivers. Peyton stepped up. Deontay Burnett stepped up. Tyler Vaughns has played great all year. Sal Cannella, Luis Perez put a beautiful pass in a tight window for him for a touchdown in this game. I mean, they have what they need. They have Luis Perez, a 29-year-old experienced quarterback, and they're quite literally fumbling each of these games. It's infuriating to watch. I don't want to take anything away from Michigan because they've been tough. They've been that team that they're not gonna fall easily. And if you look at their roster, I mean, they're not the most talented team. Arlington on paper is probably more talented than Michigan. And they just still couldn't pull it off. I just don't fully get it. I could talk in circles about this, but I was kind of disappointed with Michigan. They won, but it wasn't convincing. Their running game was rough. Their passing game was rough. Yeah, let's hear it.
Are you ready to join me in the pitchforks and torches brigade?
You know, I'm Mr. Positivity here. We don't do pitchforks. And you know what? At 0-6, they might deserve the pitchforks. But at this point, let's just move the team. Let's just move them. I mean, at this point, you're not getting fans. Nobody's going to be hopping on the bandwagon at this point. Let's move them to a city that's not in Texas, because you don't need 3 teams in Texas. Let's spread the love, and let's go and find some players here. I mean, I could talk in circles about how infuriating Arlington is. Shout out Breland Speaks. He was all over the place for Michigan. Shout out their receivers for doing what they had to do and getting open and catching the ball like the game of football is intended for you to do. That was just maddening. I can't believe Arlington blew that game. I just don't know how you do that.
Charles, pitchfork and torches times for Bob Stoops? Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. You're like you got this talent on this team. Like I said, it's probably better than Michigan. It's on paper. You got it, Bob. What the? We're not allowed to swear on here, right? We have to keep it PG.
If you want to curse, it's all you.
Bob, what the F are you doing? Really?
Football.
What the football are you doing? Bob, you're go back to college, because at least you were winning there. Go away. Because obviously you can't take these kids and make them your own. But I guess they've hit puberty, and you just can't, you can't give them a direction anymore. I mean, I guess that must be what it is. But yeah, pitchfork, torch, electric chair, lethal injection, something. Just get rid of them.
All right, you're even more extreme than me. This is great. All right, so the last game of the week was my upset special. This is San Antonio going into DC. Story of the week was that DC's offensive line coordinator had a family emergency. I think there's something wrong with his health. I'm not exactly sure. The only reason I have any insight is that the offensive coordinator that Daryl Johnston hired, because this is the league owns the teams, a guy named Sean Kugler, who spent some time in the NFL as an offensive line coach. I think he was with the Cardinals and Denver, among other teams. Hasn't been in the game for 2 years. Picked up the call. He agreed to be the offensive line coach. Showed up to the team on Tuesday. Couple new starters. Reshuffled the line a little bit. And I don't know if they were doing it for the coach who's down. I don't know if the new coach worked magic. I don't know if everything just got lucky. I don't know if San Antonio forgot how to rush a line or whatever. But that offensive line played inspired football, and DC's defense was every bit as good as Houston's defense. Their shields were up. They held court. But Sean Kugler, you are, if there wasn't a guy named Jake Bates and Hakeem Butler, maybe you'd be the player of the year. But you're not a player, so it's a different entire category. You're the coach of the week anyway. Yeah. And this was something. I mean, Ken Harris, he was trying to build a little running game. They had things going. They didn't give up on it. It was really a defensive struggle for a while. We had Quinton Dormandy again at quarterback. I have to tell you that this was a 0-0 game well into the first quarter. Finally, there was a great catch by DC. Listen, Tamo, we've given Tamo some grief, deservedly so. When he hits a pass, it's often a thing of beauty, but it's not often that he does that. But he did look a little bit better. I don't know. I still think he's more Guarantano than Adrian Martinez, but maybe he's feeling a little more comfortable. But Ty Scott, great catch. There was a more balanced offense, that's for sure. More commitment to the running game. They didn't give up on it. They had 3 straight runs by Ken Harris. There was a lateral that was badly bumbled, worried in the second quarter. Still 0-0. San Antonio gets the ball. Lovett, who by the way was the MVP for San Antonio, he had
I love it.
Yeah, you should. He had 148 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, something like that.
Yeah, he ended up with 153 rushing yards, 95 the week prior, and between those 2 weeks, that gives him over half of his yards. He's at about 350 and leads the league in rushing now. But I love John Lovett. I've been calling it since week 1. It's unfortunate Anthony McFarland had to take a tumble in order for him to get this playing time. But John Lovett's really showing up in a big way.
John Lovett,
the movie critic. That's who he is. He's the movie critic turned running back. And I'm telling you, I'd give it 2 thumbs up. Right up there.
98 Rotten Tomatoes score.
So I have a photo that somebody did where they photoshopped the critic's body and they put my head on it going, it stinks. And it's entirely appropriate. All right. So anyway, so Lovett has this great 10-yard run, but it ends with a field goal by Santoso. So it's 3-0. San Antonio kicks the ball, a punt. They down it at the 1-yard line. It looks dire for DC. They almost had a safety. They had to review it a few times, but the running back did get the ball. He definitely advanced the full ball before his knees were down. Ahead of that, Kelvin Harmon gets a big 18-yard catch. Then the run game starts. So some guy named Higgins, all of a sudden, they're like just feeding him the ball. He runs for like 3 times in a row, somewhere between 30 and 40 yards in 3 consecutive plays. The formations barely changed. The offensive line was doing, they're like basically just delay, behind, between right guard, right tackle, basically kind of plays. Jake, you were backup quarterback. What do you call that play?
Power.
All right. Well, it looked very powerful. He looked good. Both quarterbacks at this point in the first half, neither one of them had exceeded 100 yards. In fact, neither one of them was even close to 100 yards at this point. There was a big catch by Rowland in the first half. We get a Ken Harris touchdown run. It's 6-3 DC at the half. I'm cooking with gas because I'm picking DC. Nobody's believing in DC. Well, it's not true. Jay, Charles's partner, believed in DC also. But most people didn't believe in DC. No one else on this show believed in DC.
I still don't believe in DC.
So we get a 54-yard field goal by Matt McClain early in the second half. It's now 9-3 DC. And then we get a TD to Mac, but he's out of bounds. He ran out of bounds himself and then came back in bounds. So it was illegal touching. So the touchdown was vitiated by a guy who ran himself out of bounds and then came back in. So nobody pushed him out. If someone pushed him out and he came back and established possession, that's okay. Nobody was near him. He did this to himself. I mean, and on top of that, they lost the down. But it didn't matter because Lovett caught a touchdown pass. So now it's 9-9. We trade some field goals, 12-9, 12-12. Got a really nice kickoff return. A touchdown pass to Kelvin Harmon. There was a really weird play at the end where San Antonio looked like they were going into tricky, and tricks have worked for them, but this trick play seemed like it was a little bit too early for me. I don't know, but it was ill-conceived. They sort of were flipping it back, and then they passed it forward, and then they flipped it back again. But the ball basically got dropped. It was considered a fumble. DC recovered it. That's the end of the game. It's 18-12. DC wins at home. They advance to 3-3. San Antonio falls to 4-2. Still the number 2 team in their division. DC is the number 3 team in their division, but there's only 4 teams in a division, so they're still in the playoff hunt. And this was definitely the most colorful game of the week with the bright red DC against the bright yellow San Antonio Brahmas. But this was my upset special and established me as the premier expert in UFL picking in, I think, the entire world.
And I mean, there's got to be such a large number of people predicting that it might be 1 out of 1, and you're killing the game there.
I am. I'm killing the game. I should start a betting line, but not about me. So I think we've been Charles. Why don't you tell us your thoughts on this exciting barn burner of a game?
I like it. It's one of those chess matches that you go ahead and get to see. And this is something that isn't for the person that wants to go ahead and see bang bang plays, big chunk plays. This was not for you. If that's what you wanted to see the UFL as, we probably just lost a fan. No, this was down and gritty. Which play can we outmaneuver the other team? And DC came back out of the slump that they got their butts pounded by the Battlehawks last week in Audi. They came back to Audi, took the 15,000 fans that did it. I'm sure they may have contributed to the beer snake too. And they went ahead and they shook off the loss and came back as pros and kept themselves alive in the playoffs. They're only a game back, the same team. So this keeps them alive. This shows that they do have heart. And it also shows other teams that, San Antonio may have a weakness that we didn't know about. So tape is going to be run on them, just like tape is probably going to be in Birmingham for St. Louis on this last game as well. So there's still tape and reviews and all this other stuff that people are going to learn, like, hey, maybe we can do this. We got the same type of player personnel. We can do that. We can do this. So all this stuff is going to make for a very interesting last 4 weeks of the year.
One note, it looked like Dormandy might have been shaken up towards the end of the game. I'm not sure if that's if we need to watch that injury or not. I don't know if it's anything to be concerned about, but I mean, he's already their second string quarterback. Not saying he was really doing great. But he's the best option they got right now. So if he's dinged up, that's bad news to the Broncos. Yeah, whenever you lose your quarterback, it's bad news. So Jake, what were your thoughts on the game?
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on the Dormandy topic real quick, because Dormandy looked good out of the gates when he came in and became their quarterback. And they've got a guy named Kevin Hogan as their backup quarterback. And if I'm remembering correctly, he played at Stanford and was a fourth-round pick from the Browns. So this is a guy that does have that high-level, high-quality starting caliber quarterback experience. And I do think if you plug him in there, that might be something that could help give him a spark. But the Dormandy Marquez Stevenson, bring it back from college special, that was something that, was very valuable for them in those first 2 weeks of Dormandy being quarterback. And him getting hurt, it definitely puts a damper on it. But I don't think this was his best game out of his 3 starts, unfortunately. And for the Brahmas, I think, and for DC, I think this was the one game where we saw really strong running games. I think, as we already mentioned, John Lovett had the best game probably of any running back in the entire season. And then for DC, they had a 3-headed monster. I mean, last week they had Zaquandre White show up for the first time, and he had some really nice runs. This week they had Darius Hagan show up, and he had some really nice runs. And then you mix in Cameron Harris, who probably had his best game of the season. So now you're looking at a 3-headed monster. All 3 of these guys are pushing each other and competing with each other, making each other better. And Te'amu, you mentioned it early, when he's clicking, he looks really good. And at the beginning of the game, I was like, all right, they're getting him on the move. They're making some easy reads for him, and this is working. But by the end of the game, he was in his flow state. He was throwing the ball down the field. He was making plays with his legs. He was doing a little bit of everything that he's got to do. And he was doing, those things that made, I think it was 5 or 6 different NFL teams that he's been in camp with now. So he's shown all that NFL potential in this past game. So I think when you look at DC, they had a great running game, and that's kind of what carried the rest of their team. But shout out Kelvin Harmon. He's a guy that I've been saying, get him involved. And he's slowly been getting more involved. And this week he made some huge plays, some really contested catch, nice touchdown. Ty Scott played very well early for them. And Chris Rowland, he's a guy that's shown up recently as well and had a really nice kick return. He's given them an injection of speed. And we always have known DC to be a good defensive team. They are the defenders. And they did it again. They made it hard for San Antonio. They made it a scrappy football game. And when you look at San Antonio, I mean, they just couldn't get the ball to their playmakers. Jontre Kirkland had a couple chances, but there was a 2-point conversion that I kind of thought he got. They ended up taking it away after review. They couldn't really get their tight ends involved. They tried to get it to Cody Latimer, and that ended up in an interception early, and then I didn't really see Cody Latimer the rest of the game. It was just a rough game for San Antonio. This is a team that really was exciting at the beginning of the year and exceeded everybody's expectations. So a little bit of a fall from earth, I guess, is expected, law of averages. And when you really consider it, I mean, this game was huge for playoff implications. And I don't know if San Antonio went into this game, really with the mentality of this is a playoff atmosphere, because at the end of the day, they had a 2-game cushion, and now it's a 1-game lead ahead of DC, and DC is in striking distance of getting into the playoffs. Only 2 teams from each conference make it, and San Antonio is firmly entrenched as the number 2 team, and now DC is firmly entrenched as the 3 seed. So we've got a little bit of a playoff battle heating up, and I would love to see these teams match up again. I'm not sure if that home field advantage that DC is starting to build with their 15,000 fans each week, it played a role in it. We hadn't seen too much home field advantage in this league, so I'd really love to see some of it, but I'd love to see this game again in San Antonio and see what happens. And can San Antonio snap out of it and get a win? Because this was a winnable game for them, but DC pulled it off. Credit to them. I'm not a believer, and we can talk about that very shortly. But do we have any other thoughts before we move into next week?
No, there was only one other thing of note that came out this week, but I don't have much to say about it. And frankly, it's because, I don't really do, I think we did our half season grades last week, but James Larson came out with his players of the half season, his list, and I didn't really want to particularly talk about, but he's a pretty big UFL insider. So if you all want to talk about it, I didn't want to deprive either you or our guest of being able to talk about it, since it was sort of a topic of some conversation this week. Nope, nobody wants to.
No, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll just shout out a couple offensive linemen that have played well, because, they never get enough love. Jake Lucina with Arlington, he's played very well, and he's been very reliable for them. As you mentioned, there were some tackle changes, and all the backup tackles that have come in have really stepped in, and I guess they've kind of shown where the talent level is at tackles. It might not be the best level of talent in the world. I mean, even the NFL needs more tackle talent, but these guys that are stepping in, they're stepping in well. And you got guys like Jared Jones-Smith and Mike Panasuk at St. Louis who are playing very well. And you've got other guys all up and down the league. I already mentioned Jake Lucina, and that's the guy that keeps coming to my mind. And so as I scroll through these rosters, I'll try and get you a couple more names. But I really do think that the offensive line play has been elevated slowly throughout the year. And moving forward, I think there's a lot of positives to take. We're seeing a lot of guys step in off the streets as free agents or guys returning from injuries. So to not talk too much and ramble, I think there's a lot of positives that we're seeing. There's the development steps that we're seeing, and I'm excited to see what guys get some opportunities after the year's over.
Well, I enjoy watching these games. I mean, I enjoy football, but the NFL, so many days of the week, so many games, it gets a little bit overwhelming for me because of all my other projects and activities and things like that. This 4 games a week is like sort of perfect. And I don't know, for folks who love football, but you feel a little bit overwhelmed like I do, or you just follow your home team, but you want to watch more football, I think this is a perfectly acceptable option. And the level of precision isn't necessarily what you expect, but I don't know. I've seen some pretty bad Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengal games in my time. The New York Jets are still a team as far as I know. It's not all beautiful in the NFL either. And I don't know, no team really ever seems all the way out of it. All right, let's go to next week. Let's see if I can keep perfection alive. So what do we got? Jake, you're usually one that takes us into the future.
Well, we are now moving into week 7, which is mind-blowing how quick this is going. We are starting at 1 p.m. We don't have any more simultaneous broadcasts on Saturday here. Woo-hoo! In Arlington, Texas, on ESPN. We have the Memphis Showboats versus the Arlington Renegades. And I'd like to let Charles start this first one for us with a little prediction. What you got for us, Charles?
Well, let's see. If Bob Stoops survives to coach that game, he'll be greeted with a lucky 7. In this case, unlucky 7. It's going to be the 7th loss. Showboats will actually finally come in, take care of business, and ride them out to sea. I mean, it's fairly simple and straightforward.
Here is why this shirt is being worn. Arlington gets off the schneid. They are going to be Mr. Imperfect no more. Mr. Perfect is going to stay absolutely perfect. Arlington gets its first week against what I believe is truly the worst football team in the UFL, the Memphis Showboats, which are canoes with holes in their hull. Memphis goes into Arlington and loses, not because Bob Stoops does anything particularly well, but because they play well enough. Memphis plays badly enough, as they normally do, and Luis Perez shows that those numbers aren't just a fluke and it's competent enough. Oh, it's not going to be a pretty game, but it's going to be something like 25-14 or so 25-18, whatever, something like that. But yeah, I don't do spreads here or over under. I just pick the winners. And Arlington gets off the schneid. They will not be winless this year.
And you might call me a homer because 8-0 the last 2 weeks. I might just have to follow all the picks, but I also like Arlington in this matchup. And despite me really wanting to like Memphis, I really want to like Memphis. They just don't have it for me. They're struggling all over the field. They have no running game. There's a lot of problems in Memphis. And when you look at Arlington, they lost last week because of coachable mistakes. And in this league, I'd rather have the team that makes the mistakes that are coachable than the teams that are lacking talent. So I'm going to take Arlington. And Charles, let's get your chime in here. I see you still.
I'm going to revert back. Coachable mistakes. Granted, coachable mistakes are in week 1, 2, 3. Week 7, week 6, that is just a bad addiction. That is just that's an addiction that you have to kick. That's like smoking or drinking soda. That's not coachable. It was coachable in the first couple of weeks, not in week 6.
You know what? I totally get it. And I kind of agree, make a really convincing argument. But I don't know. There's just something in me telling me Luis Perez is going to get a win. They've got to win eventually.
Are you talking about like a mercy win? Maybe maybe Memphis was like, come on, Luis, come on. Just like the kid, the kid with Down syndrome takes the handoff from the high school team and they just let them run 90 yards. Hey, Luis, come on this way. The wind's over here. Come on. Don't throw a flag. Let them pass. Come on.
No one has been harder on Arlington than me. I had the Frankenstein pitchforks and torches out for Bob Stoops 4 weeks ago, but I don't know what kind of great coaching we're seeing on Memphis. They don't do anything particularly well. Their defense is stout, but every team in this league's defense looks okay because none of the offenses are all that great. Or some of them, but most of them aren't. At least 6 of their offenses aren't all that great. And you know what they're doing in Memphis? They're walking in Memphis. Just like Mark Cohn taught us. Great song, not a great way to play football. I said what I said. Arlington with the win. I don't know if you want to call it an upset because we've been here for years, and I feel like we've been talking about this for years. So what's our next game?
Yeah, and before we move on, I do think if Arlington loses this game, which of course they won't because we're in agreement on this game, but if they lose this game, it's time for Lindsey Scott. You picked him number 1 in the draft. If you aren't going to play him at 0-7, I don't know when you're going to play him or why you even drafted him. So Luis Perez, if the hot seat wasn't on you, it's on you now. But with that said, we're moving to 4 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, moving over to Fox Sports Network in Birmingham, Alabama. We have probably the best game of the first 7 weeks, the St. Louis Battlehawks versus the Birmingham Stallions. And I kind of already gave away my prediction earlier, so I'll keep it short and sweet and go first. St. Louis Battlehawks in dominant fashion. Give me at least a 2-possession win here. I think that they're going to expose Birmingham, and I just am going to laugh when I see Matt Corral announce as the starting quarterback.
Oh my God, you just gave me a hiccup. Listen, I'm going to keep it short also. St. Louis gave me a scare. I think it would be a very different story in a few weeks when these two teams meet again in St. Louis in the Battle Dome for the championship game. But I'm going to go with Birmingham. I don't know how you stop Hakeem Butler. But Aitman has disappeared. He's sort of in disfavor. Jakor came back and he was all over the place, and then he sort of faded again. And I don't know, Birmingham just looks like a consummate professional team. And, St. Louis did lose a game this year, and they almost lost to Houston, which is if it's not the second, it's the third worst team in the league. And maybe it's a wake-up call. Maybe it was a trap game. I don't know. Maybe it was just maybe they're just not as great as we think they are. So anyway, I'm going with Birmingham at home, and I hope that the Alabamians show up for their team. I know that they do for the Tide and for UAB and lots of other teams that are in that area. Auburn. Treat this like this is your SEC game, and in the SEC you don't like those sexy teams like the Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk Rams. You don't want to see Torrey Holt running all over the place. So let get behind your Stallions and then let's kick them with your horseshoes.
I'm going to make two predictions on this one. I'm going to predict that the Stallions are going to be exposed.
Ooh.
They're going to be exposed for the not so great defense that they are. They're going to be exposed, and they're going to be down a whole bunch.
I feel a bug.
But Birmingham will come back, and we will go to a shootout. Birmingham will win.
I like it, Charles.
It's a WWE storyline where the heel go ahead and gets the gut punch, but in WrestleMania in the Dome, the face goes ahead and wins the championship.
Crowd goes home happy.
Yes.
And this
Extra
isn't
point.
a gambling show, and we're not giving financial advice here, but when you see my St. Louis Battlehawks up on the scoreboard, you might want to get on the live betting lines because Charles over here thinks a comeback's in the works, but I'm taking St. Louis by a lot.
Okay. Wow. We've got some very divergent opinions here. So, all right.
I only give it to Birmingham one reason, and that's home field, even though there's not going to be much of a home field, 9,000 people maybe. Let's put it this way. If they find a way to sell out that half of the bowl, because this is going to be this most highly anticipated heavyweight battle grudge going on, which, by the way, we will have a live viewing party on our show.
Tune in.
So we will have it on there, but this is going to be the heavyweight bout everybody's talking about in the UFL. So if they don't sell tickets for this, pack up that U-Haul for 2025, maybe 26.
All right. Well, so much for the positivity. All right. Well, Jake's got a belt behind him. Maybe he'll raffle that one off for the touchdown crew. Probably not though.
This one's custom. It ain't going nowhere.
All right. I like the sound of that. I like the greed. I like that. All right. So what do we got next? Who's up next?
But with that, we get a little greedy in DC. 3 home games in a row for the DC Defenders at Audi Field, or Audi.
Yeah, Audi.
Potato.
The Germans.
But we're on ESPN at noon on Sunday. Again, not any simultaneous casting or broadcasting here, but we've got the Michigan Panthers visiting the DC Defenders. Dad, take it away. Let's hear what you got.
You know what? I like both these teams. I like Michigan. They are resilient. They're tough. They don't quit. They win games they shouldn't win. But I'm starting to believe in DC. I think this is another game they need to win. They're home. Their defense looks hot. Danny Etling has to run more than Danny Etling should have to run. And with EJ Perry being out, I don't like the amount of times they actually call Danny Etling on intentional runs and the amount of times that he seems like he has to run. I don't think he gets those same kind of gains against DC. I liked what I saw from Hagens and from was it Dixon? Who's Harris?
Kevin Harris. And they also have Zacharias White.
Yeah, they have a nice 3-headed monster going on there. Tiamo hopefully feels a little bit less jittery, a little bit more comfortable. Michigan's got a hell of a defense, but DC's at home. They get a lot of people. The weather's getting nice. I'm going to go with DC to this is probably an upset, probably a mild upset. I tell you, I don't feel as confident of this one as I did last week with San Antonio, but I'm going to say DC does it, and I don't want to do this, but I sort of see Etling maybe being knocked out of the game.
Interesting. And I don't know what the gambling odds are on this, but I would be interested to see what it is, because I actually do think that DC, after this win that they had, might end up being the slight favorites at home. But that doesn't deter me. I think this newfound three-headed monster of DC is not going to find rushing lanes very easily against this very stout Michigan Panthers defense. And I don't think Danny Etling's the best quarterback ever. I don't think he's a championship winning quarterback in this league, despite being solid. And he showed his potential this week and the week before when he got some time. But I think this is going to be, my best prediction is a low scoring game. I think this is going to be defensively heavy. I think you're going to see a lot of really struggling running games, a lot of quarterback sacks. I think you're going to see Te'amu running. I think you're going to see Etling running. And give me a really close walk-off field goal win by Michigan Panthers. I don't think it'll be anything new for them. So I'll go with Michigan. And I mean, there's just one name that I'm not mentioning, and I'll save it for my celebration when they win next week. But Charles, let us know your thoughts.
It seems pretty even. If you look at the stats, it's seeming pretty even. You got both teams having trouble scoring points, and both teams actually giving up a lot of points. Michigan doesn't give up as much as DC does, but DC is very tough at home. But Michigan does have the better record. So if you're actually a betting person, I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan actually is a slight favorite on that one. But in the same time, the strength of schedule shows that DC is 3-3 with a 0.556 opponent schedule versus Michigan at 4-2 with a 0.472. What does that mean? Absolutely nothing. I'm going to go with DC.
All right. And if my math is correct, that leaves us with San Antonio and Houston as being another battle of Texas. Is that right?
And I do believe you are correct at 3 p.m. Yep, 3 p.m. on ESPN. We have the Brahmas versus the Roughnecks, and they're going to try and, outperform at Jake Bates' MVP ceiling of performance in the game prior. But with that said, we have in Houston this game between the Brahmas and the Roughnecks, 3 p.m. ESPN. And for me, I like the Brahmas, and I was kind of always a fan of the Brahmas when nobody was, and then everybody hopped on the Brahmas, and I've kind of sat back a little bit. And with that said, I can't believe I'm going to do this, but Houston being probably the worst team in the league, if not them, it's Memphis, and if not them, DC in my eyes. But I actually think Houston's live for a home upset here. I think when you look at San Antonio, especially if Dormity's hurt, they've really taken a big step back, and Lovett is their offense right now. I think Houston has a really scrappy defense, and they have the abilities and the pieces to slow down the running game. So this could be another boneheaded decision where I'm just wishing to speak into existence a win, but give me Houston.
I think there is going to be an upset in Houston, and the upset is going to be that the defense actually pulls out their knives and kills the offense, and maybe even starts to attack each other. It's going to be West Side Story, but there's only one gang. I think that this team is done. I think that they hate each other. I would not want to be in that locker room at all. The coach just threw a super challenge against himself, lost it on purpose so that he doesn't have to, and he's ejected himself, and the assistant coach just left town on that midnight train to Georgia. I think San Antonio, I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't know why they're going to do it. I'm not sure who's going to be their quarterback. I don't even know that it matters. I think that Houston actually scores against themselves. It might be 12-0. Houston does safeties against itself the whole game, but I'm going with San Antonio beating Houston.
Houston is the biggest dumpster fire of all time. It is a barn fire that can be seen from the International Space Station. You can see that blaze, and the aliens are talking about, you don't want to come to that place. If it's getting that bad, forget it. I wouldn't go so far as sharpening up knives. I think, we're in Houston. I'm sure they have rifles. Just go shoot each other. Yeah. So, I mean, they'll do it from a distance. There won't be many witnesses, maybe a couple hundred fans, but there won't be many witnesses. And they'll go ahead and just they'll forfeit. It'll be a forfeited game, the first one in UFL history. And yeah, San Antonio, listen, realistically, they're going to come for a fight and not with each other. They're going to come for a fight. They're going to battle. But there's just one problem. They suck. San Antonio's going to win. Houston's going to try their best. They may score 8 points, maybe 11. I don't know. They could go ahead and they could put San Antonio could put their offensive line coach at quarterback. They'll still win. So we'll go with that. San Antonio it now knows that they need to keep ahead of DC, so they got to get a win.
And I think that's a really good point, because that is the truth. And I'll stay on my island here. I kind of have a gut inclination that Jared Garantamo's back, and I don't know, for whatever reason I like Houston's defense. I don't like much else about them, but I like their front seven. So I'll stay on the island here. It probably is going to look stupid, but I like looking stupid quite clearly. So with that said, I think we had some really good Discord here. I think we in every single game there's at least one person on an island. I don't think we were in agreement with any games next week. So week 7 should be a big week with a lot of fun games, and hopefully we get some shakeups in the standings, and maybe we can see an go for either a team that's winless or a team that's won every game. So let's see how this week goes. But week 6 was a fun week, and I'm looking forward to the countdown to the playoffs.
Let's put it this way: if Birmingham doesn't lose this game, they will go undefeated. I mean, there's not really any competition after that. They will go undefeated. This is the bump in the road that the undefeated will fall or they will live on.
Yeah.
Well, Glenn, what are your thoughts? You've been sitting there looking pretty the whole time.
Well, I think they're going to win one game. Come on, you can't lose them all. You got it. There may be one, but they can't go undefeated, unwinless.
Winless.
No, whatever. They're going to win one. That's all.
We're going to make them unwinless.
Okay.
Yeah.
So sorry for waking you from your nap there, Glenn. Sorry.
Go back to my quarter. Sorry, I didn't get in.
When you're not kicking us off the air for 3 seconds at a time.
Just to let you know,
yeah.
If Arlington doesn't win against Memphis, is their best shot. Because then you got San Antonio, St. Louis, DC.
The gauntlet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Like I said, this might be their one chance to prove that they are not the worst team in the league. Charles, thank you very much for being our guest. Tell us about where people can find you and your show. Thank you again for having me on last Tuesday night. It's the Touchdown Crew, and where can they find you and your cast?
Best place to go ahead and find me is on Facebook. I do have my own page. It is called The Touchdown Crew. We broadcast there every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. We are also on UFL America. Yeah, it's another Facebook page that we're on there. My co-host Jay, who did not show up today, still has microphone issues and stuff like that, but he's my stat boy going on over there. So if he needs a number, he just pulls it out of the hat, rolls the dice, whatever. But every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, is the Touchdown Crew with me and Jay. We'll go over UFL, and eventually we will go back to the NFL, and we'll start forecasting that for the rest of the year as well. So we do both.
Excellent. And Jake, where can people find you if you want to be found?
Head over to Twitter, Jake_Lippman. Talk to me there. Check out my old podcast. You never know if it gets revitalized. If you're in MMA interviews, got some great athletes over there. Peyton Talbot, big win recently. He just got a fight booked on the Conor McGregor card, so you can go learn a little bit about him over there on Behind the Cage Door. But yeah, Jake_Lippman. Let's get some Twitter or X banter going on. But that's all I got for today.
Well, for those of you who are on the video, you can see my X, or the artist formerly known as Twitter, handle down there. For those of you who are not here and who are only hearing this, it's at Icarus Spell MD. And I'd love it if you gave my primary podcast a try, Garden of Doom. Its cousin show is Garden Views on the same feed. Garden of Doom is sort of more esoteric, eclectic things that go bump in the night. We get We got a lot of content creators, authors, movie people, TV. We get professors, a lot of comparative mythology, cryptids, UFOs, you name it, we got it. Garden Views, a little bit more grounded, but still things of grounded but interesting. Things like the law of space and cybersecurity and cryptocurrency and geopolitics with guests that really are way above my weight class. My wrestling podcast. I'm a little bit too much into professional wrestling, and Hammerlock Hangover is my primary wrestling podcast. I did make an appearance 2 Saturdays ago on the Hameen Media Group / PWC's Smack Attack, so hello to them. And I'm on Unpopular Review tonight. After this, I've got to catch up on Raw, and then I'll tag in, and we do a Raw watch-along these days instead of the review show, which is great for me because I'm not up till 12:30, and so I'll be done at 11. But if you want to see Unpopular Review Wrestling, and once a month on Unpopular Review Entertainment, Garden of the Superior, sort of like Garden of Doom, but I'm going to drop it tomorrow on Garden of Doom, or maybe Wednesday as a bonus show on Freya, the Norse goddess of blood, sex, sugar, and magic. Everything the Red Hot Chili Peppers like. So is she the same as Frigg? I'm not telling you here. I'm telling you there. So anyway, that's probably enough for me. Oh, if you like the legal show where wrestling and legal things intersect on the Wrestling Soup Network and on their feeds, there's 5 legal shorts called the Black Letter Body Slam with the diabolical lawyer himself, me. And that's it. Recently we talked about the FTC rule on non-competes and also the latest in the Janelle Grant versus Vince McMahon et al. Sex. Let's leave it at sex. Lawsuit, because sex sells. All right. Yeet. Yeet is right. All right. That's all I got. Glenn, take us out of here.
All right. Y'all can catch me tomorrow on the Thin Line radio station playing a little bit of rock and roll from 2 to 4. And maybe some disco. Paranormal Guys Wednesday night. We have Touchdown Tommy from Virginia Tech is the second guest. You all might know him.
I like Charles dancing. It reminds me of my dancing.
I hope you old men don't sprain anything is all I'm hoping for. So. But Friday night, Green Guardian, and my new show on Thin Line Radio Station, Flashback Fridays.
Subscribe right here. Subscribe, like, and click that notification bell to the Sportcat Network. You'll get all the shows.
Please do.